Hello guys, welcome to my channel Lucid Fanfic, and if you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest videos. So be sure to stick around until the end, and let's get started. 1A Homeroom. It had been just under 18 hours since the class had all finished their finals, and Bakugo had been expelled, and they were all nervous about the results seeing as they determined whether or not they'd be going to summer camp or getting left behind. Eventually, Aizawa slinked into the room like a slug and lazily pulled himself up into his chair. He then looked at them and began to speak. Congratulations, you attained a 70% success rate, which means you all passed barely and get to go to summer camp, he lazily announced. There was a brief PRD of silence then. Woohoo, we're going to summer camp together, Mina cried out with tears of joy in her eyes. The class then joined in on the celebration. Unfortunately, Aizawa wasn't finished. However, Aizawa stated loudly, silencing everyone. Whilst everyone did manage to pass their written exams, 6 of you failed your practical exams. As a result, whilst those 6 will be joining you all at summer camp, they will all also be taking remedial classes with me to make up for it, Aizawa explained bluntly, causing a significant reduction in joy permeating the room. Now that that's out of the way, we can move on to camp itself. In 1 week you will all be going to summer camp, in which you will all level up your quirks and skills under the tutelage of the WWPC. I expect you all to acquire the items listed in an email you will receive this evening by the weekend and report to the bus station on campus at 9 o'clock on the dot, or you will be left behind, Aizawa explained before wrapping himself in his sleeping bag. After hearing of their success as well as the upcoming summer training camp, the class dismissed itself and went to their respective lectures. However, when they all got home that evening, group chat, Xeno Girl. Hey guys, so we've got a few days until we need to get ready for camp. Want to do something fun? Transparent. Yamina, that sounds great. But what should we do? Rulebook. I heard there's a new museum on the history of pencils opening. Xeno Girl. Just going to pretend you didn't just suggest that, Ida. Anything else, guys? Rock and roll. There is an amateur musician's gig playing at the local cafe. Rock hard. There's a local arm wrestling competition at Quad's gym. Zookeeper. We could go to a petting zoo. Creationist. There is a gala happening at my parents' house. Thunderstruck. We could all go to the arcade. Xeno Girl. Interesting, too much TSDRN, cute, dull, too obvious. You guys, come on. You've got to have something better than that. Greens. How about Takoba Beach? The darkness. The beach? Maidens of black water. Octopus Man. That sounds really nice actually. Froggy. I love swimming. The main man. Swimsuits. Cold soba. I've never been to a beach. Dazzler. A perfect opportunity to sparkle. Xeno Girl. Wait, I thought that place was a trash heap. Greens. Actually, a local citizen recently cleaned it up. Xeno Girl. Wait, really? Anti-gravity. You wouldn't happen to know who this local citizen is, Midoriya? Greens had left the group chat. Anti-gravity. Knew it. Beach. After about a day of scheduling, the class all found themselves at Takoba Beach. It's so sparkly, Hagakure announced as the class bore witness to the gleaming waters of Takoba. The beach was several miles in length, covered in white sand, lifeguard posts, rock pools, and boulder lines which split the beach into sections. Beyond the dunes was the ocean, miles upon miles of great blue, all teeming with exotic life, as the sun's rays danced on its surface, creating what looked to be twinkling lights. It's glorious. Aoyama wept as he saw the twinkling waters that outshone him. This was an awesome suggestion, Midori. Mina cried out as she threw her arm around Izuku's neck. You're welcome, Mina. But guys, we shouldn't all just stand here, let's have some fun. Izuku replies, getting a unanimous cheer of joy. Even Todoroki joined in by raising an arm with a smile. The students all set up the bathing spot and then discarded their clothes to reveal their bathing suits, aka the part Mineta was most excited for, had Izuku not silently threatened to bludgeon him if he made the girls feel uncomfortable. The guys all wore simple swimming trunks or various colors ranging from red to blue, to green, to yellow with a few accent colors like black and white. The girls, on the other hand, had a little more variety. Sue was wearing a green and white striped one-piece. Yururika donned a pink frilly two-piece. Hagakure wore a white two-piece, whilst Momo wore a very mature black two-piece. Jiro was in a solid dark purple one-piece with white lighting decals on the sides, and Mina was wearing a pink sling bikini or she was until a lifeguard cloaked her in a towel and forced her change due to public indecency. She returned a few minutes later in a green two-piece that covered much more of her. After that little fiasco, the class got back to preparations. Third-person POV. As the day wore on, the entire class had such a blast that they'd never forget it. Thankfully, Kaminari brought a waterproof camera so that they could never forget it no matter how hard they tried. Snap. We see Mina, Toru, Momo, and Ochako sunbathing next to one another with Mineta and Shiro gazing from afar. Snap. We see the guys including Ojiro, Kirishima, Tokoyami, Mineta, Izuku, and Sato all playing volleyball together. Snap. We see Ito asleep as Shiro and Mineta bury him in a sand mermaid with a seashell bra as Mina laughs at it. Snap. We see Ida chasing the trio who buried him as they scatter. Snap. We see Shoji chilling in the water with Tsu on a donut and frog-themed floats respectively. Snap. We see most of the class playing water chicken in teams. Snap. We see Mineta using a snorkel and mask to swim beneath the surface to check out Toru's, but as it displaces the water. Snap. We see Toru with Tsu attempting to drown Mineta. Snap. We see Izuku attempting to teach the guys how to surf with many falling in. Snap, snap, snap. We see a montage of Aoyama surfing, then getting caught in a large wave, then being rescued by Kirishima, and then Aoyama spitting out water like a fountain. Snap. We see the class all splashing around in the ocean as Tsu does laps around everyone. Snap. We see the class setting up a barbecue whilst Ida tries to order people around and Todoroki uses his flames to light the grill. Snap. We see the class all enjoying hot dogs, burgers, grilled fish, salad, and kebabs with many condiments. Snap. We see Momo wiping sauce off Jiro's cheek as they both heavily blush. Snap, snap, snap. We see the guys all trying different hot sauces with differing reactions. Ito was sweating quietly as he tried to sustain his composure. Shiro was chugging water. Mineta was choking as his face turned red and his eyes watered, and Izuku with Kirishima were just powering through. As the day got later, we see many of the class holding up the sun with perspective pictures. Snap, snap, snap. We see Kirishima doing the classic Atlas pose. Mina was on her back using her hands and feet. Momo was using one finger. Tokoyami had dark shadow, eat the sun. Tsu balanced it on her tongue, and many more. Izuku POV. As the evening life began to envelop the best, and the orange rays pierced the waters, the students all began to pack up and prepare to leave. Izuku, on the other hand, decided to take a quick stroll across the sands. He dried off, threw on a t-shirt and sandals, and took his brief leave. As he walked across the white and sandy dunes, enjoying the sea air and the cool winds, he ran into a face he recognized. It was the fox lady he'd helped during his last day of internships. Ippan Josei, he believed her name was. Unfortunately, however, she wasn't alone. She was being pestered by a man in a Speedo and shades holding a surfboard, and she looked very uncomfortable. She was clearly trying to ignore the guy by focusing her attention on her book and curling up, but the dude simply wasn't taking the hint. Then the dude bro grabbed her wrist and looked angry, so being the good Samaritan he was, Izuku decided to intervene. Hey, Lieutenant, but can't you see you're making her uncomfortable? Izuku states as he grabs the guy's wrist and squeezes. Gah, Fingbrat, let go of me or I'll knock you out. The guy replies as he pitifully attempted to shake Izuku loose. But Izuku firmly held on and continued to squeeze the guy's wrist to the point it began to make clicking sounds. Alright, you've proven your point, dude. Let me go, alright. The guy capitulated with a nervous smile. Only if you promise to leave her alone. Izuku states, do you even know this stuck-up HHH? Alright, I promise to leave her alone, dude, now please let go before you break my wrist. The guy begged after Izuku gave him a good hard squeeze, and then obliged. Now leave before I decide to break something. Izuku threatened with a glare. His entire disposition them swiveled on a dime as he turned his attention to Ippan. We really need to stop meeting like this, Josei. Izuku states with a smile, causing the fox lady to blush as the guy ran off. Thank you, sir. I remember you. Me, Midoriya, right? She replied as she tried to remember him. Yeah, that's me. Thanks for remembering. Izuku replied with a smile. I don't think I could forget you. She whispered, causing herself to blush. Anyway, why are you here? And why did you help? She asked curiously as she released her tension, revealing what she was wearing. She was wearing blue shorts with a red hoodie along with a pair of beige sliders. This caused Izuku to confirm something he'd noticed during their last encounter. Her white strip did in fact go beyond her neckline and all the way down. He then shook his head to refocus on the conversation. "Oh, I'm here with some friends. We just passed out final exams for this semester. As for why I helped, well, it's as I said when we first met. Because saving someone who's in trouble is always the right thing to do, and you looked pretty uncomfortable," Izuku explained succinctly. The two of them then stood there for a few moments awkwardly, not knowing what to say to one another. Midoriya, would you like to join me for a little while just to make sure that man doesn't come back? Ipan asks bashfully as she trips over her words. Sure, I've got time," he replied as he sat down next to her as she reopened her book. "What you reading there?" Izuku asked as he peeked at the book. "It's called Prelude to Foundation, and it's by Isaac Asimov," she replied, showing him the cover. "Sounds cool, what's it about?" he asked as her eyes light up at the request. "Oh, it's part of a series of books that start in the 1940s and end in the 12th millennium, in which a mankind conquers the galaxy, loses Earth, establishes an empire, and a man predicts the future using mathematics," Ipan explained as she passionately described the books as Izuku intently listened. Eventually, however, she caught him staring and whiny quiet. "Oh, sorry, I tend to get all overexcited about new books," she apologized, rather embarrassed. No, it's great that you're so passionate. Though I am a little surprised at the genre. I thought you would read like, I don't know, Sherlock or something along those lines," he replies, not really knowing what women read beyond his mother's murder mystery novels. "Oh well, an online friend suggested that I branch out, and they recommended the series to me," Ipan replied bashfully. The two then sat there for what felt like hours just discussing books. Ipan was an avid reader who'd read books from America, to Germany, to Australia, to Mongolia, to Chile, to China. Izuku, meanwhile, was more of a hobbyist reader in his spare time, but still added to the conversation. Until, unfortunately, things had to end. "Hey Midoriya, you listening? We're going back now, bro," Kirishima cried out, causing Izuku to check his phone's clock. It was 16. "Sorry Josie, I gotta run, friends and all that," Izuku explains as he gets up. "Well, thank you again, Midoriya, for saving me," she replied bashfully. "No problem, in fact. Here, take this," he replied before pulling out a small notebook and pen before writing something on it. When he handed it to her, she saw it was a phone number. She blushed even harder at that. She'd never gotten a guy's number before. "Use it whenever you're trouble, or just want to talk. I'll come and help you out. Only if you want to keep it, that is, don't feel obligated or anything," Izuku replied awkwardly as he realized he'd just given a pretty woman his number. "Oh, thank you very much. I'll definitely consider it, Midoriya," she replied as she too got up, showing off the height difference. "All right then, see you, Josie," he states as he begins to walk away, only for his hand to be grabbed. You can call me Ipan if you want to," she states shyly as she tries desperately to not look him in the eye. Sure, and you can call me Izuku if you want," he replied awkwardly as she let him go. The two then parted ways, and Izuku met up with Kirishima. "Hey Midoriya bro, quick question, who's the fox?" Kirishima asked curiously. "A friend," Izuku replied with a smile as he looked over his shoulder at Ipan. "I can't wait to talk to her again," he thinks to himself as he and Kirishima catch up with their friends. Some random back alley. Meanwhile, elsewhere in a dingy part of the city, something major was about to unfold. This is the last one. A girl with messy blonde hair states as she sinks her fangs into a dead rat, exsanguinating the rodent. This girl was Himiko Toga, and she was on the verge of death by starvation. Her spiteful parents had kicked out of the house over 3 years ago, all because he needed to drink BLD to live, but no, they wouldn't jeopardize their social standing for their only child, so they threw her out. Now she was living in alleyways, drinking the BLD of rats, cats, birds, and occasionally the homeless, but it wasn't enough. Her stomach ached for a real meal, not these poultry snacks. "My tummy hurts," she whines as she lays down in the trash to try and start warm for the night. "I hope I have good dreams tonight. Maybe I'll have the one where I'm loved and cherished again," she thought to herself as she fell into dreams. Only this time she would have more than mere dreams, and it began with a familiar voice. Himiko, wake up." A voice she recognized called out to her, as she stirred awake to blinding light. As she looked up, she couldn't believe her eyes. "Saito?" she asked tentatively as she tried to look at his face, which was covered in shadow. "Hey Hime, it's been a while," Saito replied. Saito had been the only person in her life that had accepted her for who she was and even defended her from bullies on occasion. But he couldn't be here, and she knew it because she had been the one to kill him. Her hunger had begun to severely affect her mind, causing her to lose whatever semblance of control she had. And when Saito had found her hiding away to comfort her, she attacked him and drained him dry, all without a second thought. But now he was here. "Why are you here, Saito?" she asked as she began to cry out of guilt. "Because I never got the chance to confess something to you," he replied, much to her confusion. "What was that?" she asked. "That I love you," he admitted, stunning her. But I killed you. How could you love a monster like me?" she cried as tears hitched her words. "I forgave you for that a long time ago, Himiko. Now please, take my hand, so that we can be together forever," Saito explained as he held out his hand. Toga didn't know what to think, other than the fact that she wanted this. She wanted to be loved, to be accepted, and if Saito could give her that, even if this was just a dream, she took his hand. She was then pulled up to Saito's eye line. She then went to kiss him. "Perfect," Saito stated as he rose his head and revealed his face. Upon taking his hand and seeing God's face, Toga's mind was flooded with thoughts of BLD, a scarlet lake, a ruby river, an ocean of succulent BLD. Her mind was illuminated to a divine purpose, to create this appealing vermilion expanse. She would create a mighty river, a river of bloody corpses. She would drain the life essence from all those who wronged her. She would drown the world in a crimson purgatory and create it anew. A serene and cerise world, one where the dead would dance, all of hell would sing, and she would never be hungry ever again. Her mind then shot back to a few days ago. She'd been lurking in the alleyways and watching a TV across the street that was showing live footage from Hosu. It was about the hero killer, her idol, someone who killed people and drank their BLD. She remembered considering joining the league, but choosing not to as Stain had condemned them. But now, with her new divine purpose, they could be useful. Growl. But first, she needed to eat something, or better yet, someone. She then decided who her first meal would be, and began walking towards her parents' house. As she did so, however, she passed a broken mirror in a dumpster and saw her new face. "I look so appealing, so bloody," she states happily with a crazed smile as she begins to explore her new body and its new capabilities. Plane ride. Now, you might be wondering, gee, why is Izuku on a plane? Isn't he meant to be going to camp soon? Yes, however, he had other things to get done before he went to training camp. Specifically, after he'd won the sports festival, he'd not only won a near gold medal for his efforts, but something else. 2 tickets to the yearly I-Island Expo. Now, initially Izuku thought about bringing Yururika, since she was his first real friend, but she unfortunately had plans. Then he'd considered Momo, but apparently, she was going with All Might, and most of his class were either busy or uninterested. So Izuku felt he'd be going alone, seeing as he only had one additional ticket, and Eri was having a mother-daughter with Inko, which left him with one option, one hyperactive pink-haired option. "Look at how cool that massive island is, 10 million man," Mei Hatsum stated enthusiastically as she peeked out the plane window. The plane itself was provided by UA along with the tickets. But back to Mei. Last he'd seen her, she'd done a bang-up job of making his hero costume as well as the others, and before he'd left he asked her for something else. That something else wasn't ready just yet, but she'd made significant progress on it, and he felt like rewarding her. Plus, despite her unique personality traits, Mei was a brilliant inventor, and Izuku felt it would be good to form a professional relationship with her now rather than later. As the plane approached the island, however, his mind wandered to someone he'd been thinking about a lot recently, Ipan Josei. He'd given her his number, and while she hadn't called him yet, or he her, he still felt weird about it. He was an 18-year-old university student, while she was clearly in her 20s. He didn't know how people would react to their friendship. Oh well, things to consider later. Right now, I need to make sure Mei doesn't start using the plane's walls as blueprint sheets. Izuku thinks to himself as the plane landed. Airport. As the two of them landed and disembarked, Izuku flew. He should have brought a child leash to restrain Mei, because as soon as she exited the airport, she was immediately enamored with everything. Look at all these babies. May states as she vibrates like a toddler on fizzy drink, whilst looking at the security robots and holograms. May, remember, we've got some friends to meet before we can look around. You remember your promise, right? Izuku interjects before the inventor went off the rails. Yeah, yet 10 million man, I remember. It's just so exciting. I always knew I'd get to come here eventually, seeing as I am the great May Hatsum, but during my first year at UA? Not a chance, so I'm just super excited. She replied confidently with her best smile. I couldn't agree more, young Hatsum. This island is truly astonishing. The ever-familiar voice of All Might boomed as he and Momo, along with, surprisingly enough, Jiro arrived. Hey there, America man. You brought magic melons and earplugs with you? Neat. May states casually, completely ignoring the tidal wave of fans surrounding the hero. The group then proceeded to wait for All Might to finish signing autographs, receive kisses from both men and women, and taking pictures. They all then waited as All Might said that they'd be meeting a friend of his in due time, which only made May even more anxious to get going. Izuku passed the time by asking Jiro how she got to come to Island with All Might and Yamamoto. Apparently, Momo had received an invitation from the hero to go, and she'd only accept if she could bring a +1, which turned out to obviously be Jiro. Izuku then remarked if this was a date, and Jiro immediately got blushy and threatened him with her now snaking jacks, causing him to back down. It was at this point, however, that Jiro noticed something. Hey Green, ain't that your mom and sister? She asked as she looked over his shoulder, causing Izuku to WHP his head around in confusion. Big brother. The now revealed Eri cries out as she runs up to hug her big bro, followed by Inko. Eri, Mom. How? Why? What are you doing here? He asked as his brain rebooted from the surprise. Well, since you got me that interview at UA, and I subsequently got the job of a nurse there, I got a much better holiday package from Nizu. So I decided to use it, come here and be with you, sweetie, and Eri was happy to accompany me. Inko explained cheerfully. Izuku, however, felt that this was somehow planned by Nizu or Eraserhead to keep him in line or something. It was at this point that the others introduced themselves to Inko and Eri. Momo was her usual courteous self, all prim and proper. Jiro was casual as ever. May called Inko 10 million man's mom, which confused her, and All Might, well, he felt phantom pains from when Inko slapped him as Yagi after the USJ. So he did his best to make a favorable impression. He'd learned throughout his long life as a hero that when it came to things to fear in the world, supervillains like AFO were surpassed by only one thing, an angry protective mother. Thankfully for him, however, a friendlier face pogoed into view. Uncle Might. A blonde girl with glasses fired out as she approached on a pogo stick before then leaping into All Might's arms. Haha. Melissa, my precious goddaughter, look at you. You've gotten so big. All Might stated as the two of them hugged. Goddaughter? I didn't know All Might had any family. Jiro mused as the group watched the two embrace each other. Ah, where are my manners? This is Melissa Shield, the daughter of my bestest friend in the world. All Might stated happily. Hi there, I'm Melissa Shield. Or would that be Shield Melissa in Japanese? Melissa greets them as she sat perched on her godfather's arm. Greetings, Miss Shield. I'm Momo Yaoyorozu, but please, call me Yamamoto. And as for the name thing, Fist names are fine. Momo replies courteously. Name's Kyoka Jiro. Use either name. I'm cool either way. Jiro replied casually. May Hatsum, future CEO of Hatsum Industries, at your service, Blondie. May stated as kindly as possibly before returning to her analysis of a robot. I'm Izuku Midoriya. That's my mom Inko Midoriya, and this little one. Izuku states as he picks up Eri. Is my adorable little sister, Eri Midoriya. Say hi to the nice lady, Eri. He continued as he encouraged his sister to be brave. Hi, I'm Eri. She stated quietly as she held on to Izuku with fervor, immediately winning Melissa's heart. Oh my god, you are so cute. Melissa states as she hops from her godfather's arm and approaches Eri with a sweet smile. Hi, Eri. I'm Melissa, but you can call me Melly if you want to. She states kindly while smiling at the horn girl. Thank you, Melly. I think you're really pretty. Eri states in a cute tone, causing everyone's hearts to melt from the cuteness. As Melissa continued to ingratiate herself to the little girl, All Might coughed to get the conversation back on track, or because his lungs had BLD in them, one or the other. Not that I don't love seeing young Eri making new friends, especially with my honorary niece. But isn't David mean to be with you, Melissa? All Might asked awkwardly as everyone turned their attention to him. Oh, you know my dad. Always busy with one thing or other. But he said he'd be here when you arrived. Melissa replied as she tore herself away from Harry. And you know how I love to keep my promises. A voice states as a man appears. Daddy/David. Melissa and All Might cry out in unison as they both hug the man called David. Hey, sweetie. Hey, big guy, how you holding up? David replied as he was crushed by his friend's giant arms. Better now that you are here, my brother from another mother. All Might replied jovially. After almost crushing the poor guy, All Might eventually released him and allowed him to introduce himself. The man introduced himself as David Shield. Wait, the David Shield? Holy smokes. As in the guy who made all of All Might's gear, David Shield? I gotta get his autograph. One autograph, signing later. Add that to the rest now. Where was I? Alright. The man had introduced himself as David Shield, the man legendarily known for creating all of All Might's gear during the hero's time in America. The students were stunned to be meeting such an icon. But none more so than May, who practically tackled the guy to not only get autograph, but ask him a billion questions. As David dealt with May's questions and the others just stared in confusion, Momo took the opportunity to quickly and quietly speak with Izuku. Midoriya, can I please speak to you privately for one moment? She asked quietly, sure to avoid Jiro's super hearing. Sure. Izuku replied as they took a few steps away from the group. What is it you wanted to talk about? Izuku asked. Well, you see, it's about you-know-what. Momo replied as she explained the past few days and her experience. Flashback. Momo was reeling from what she had just learnt. All Might, the #1 hero of Japan and symbol of peace, was once quirkless and got his power from a quirk his MSTR had given him, which she in turn had gotten from her MSTR, and he his, and so on and so forth. But now, he was offering her this very power, one for all. Initially, she had been skeptics but saw no reason to All Might, or Toshinori Yagi in his small form, to lie to her. Also, that was another thing, her sensei's small form. When she'd entered the room, she bore witness to the strongest hero ever known shrinking in a cloud of steam into a small, skinny, and weak-looking man. But his explanation for that actually helped her piece things together and believe his story. He told her a tale of two brothers from the early era of quirks, one without a quirk and a good heart, and a monster with the ultimate quirk, all for one, a quirk that let its user take and give quirks at will. She was told of the youngest brother's legacy and how he'd tried to stop his brother's villainous ways, but had ultimately failed. And feeling pity for his brother, the older one gave him a stockpiling quirk which had merged with the younger one's unknown transference quirk. And slowly, over 200 years and 8 users became OFA, which All Might used to smash in the older brother's face, which somehow didn't kill him, and which meant he was still alive. Yagi also explained that AFO was the one behind the reaction of both the League of Villains and the monstrous Nomo. But all of that aside, all the legacy quirks and monsters, Momo had one burning question. Why give it to me? She asked politely. Because you, young Yaoyorozu, have the capacity to be a great hero. Yagi confidently replied. Thank you for your kind words, sensei, but aren't there others in UA who have a greater capacity than me? I mean, I'm just some spoilt rich girl who got in on recommendation. Why not ask someone who earned their way in like Kirishima, or Ida, or even Midoriya? Why ask me? She replied hesitantly and unconfidently. But don't you see that your origin is why I'm asking you? You could have easily had an easy and pampered life until the day you died. But instead, you chose to be a hero and personally throw yourself into danger to help others, instead of just doing simple charity work like most elites. Yagi explained to Momo, stunning her. Yagi then continued. As for the others you mentioned, I, along with young Midoriya, actually went over a list of potential candidates for my power, and as for Midoriya himself, he rejected my offer because he is clearly destined to be the first quirkless hero. Everyone else was disqualified through harsh judgment, leaving only you. So, young Yaoyorozu, I ask again, will you inherit my power and legacy? Will you bear the burden of one for all? Yagi replied charismatically. Momo just sat there, too bewildered to think straight, too scared to speak, as 1,000 what-ifs raced through her head. What if she failed? What if she wasn't truly worthy? What if she screwed up and got someone hurt? What if the secret drove a wedge between herself and those she cared for? But then, a different what-if silenced them all. What if she was worthy, and that by doubting herself, as she had done ever since she'd gotten into UA. She was falling into a self-fulfilling spiral of failure, and that by accepting she could be the hero she always wanted to be. With that last what-if considered, her doubts were banished and her mind was made up. I accept, she replied with confidence and firmness. Yagi then transformed into his hero form and spoke. Wonderful. Thank you, young Yaoyorozu, for accepting my offer now. Eat this. He replied as he pulled out glowing strand of hair. Wait, what? Was her reply. End of flashback. After she was finished recounting the story to Izuku, he smiled at her with pride. I'm proud of you, Yamamoto. You overcame your self-doubts and took a big step in your journey, one I will happily help you with if you so longing. Izuku stated kindly as he placed hand on her shoulder. Thank you, Midoriya, and as for your offer, I gladly accept. She replied with a confident smile. You're welcome, and you can call me Izuku if you want. He replied kindly. I might just do so. Momo replied as they both giggled. The conversation then shifted back to OFA and its potential. So, have you actually used OFA yet? Izuku asked curiously. Yes, actually, though it didn't exactly go well. Momo replied in an embarrassed manner. What happened? Izuku asked. Well, you see, he told me to focus my strength, and then, and I quote, clench my butt cheeks and yell smash, so I did, and it shattered my arm and ripped all its muscles to ribbons. Momo explained coyly as she sped through the explanation. Izuku facepalmed, because well, he was dumbfounded. How did All Might not know how to use his own power? Momo listened to me very carefully. Do not, under any circumstances, use OFA until training camp. I'll help you get a better handle on it. Until then, disregard All Might's advice. I get the feeling he doesn't know what he's talking about. Izuku firmly states as he grabs both of her shoulder and looks her dead in the eyes. Okay, Izuku, I trust you, and to be honest, I think you're right about All Might. Great a hero as he may be, teaching clearly isn't his forte. She replies as they separate awkwardly. The two were then joined by Jiro, who had some things to say. Hey, you two. Hatsum finally calmed down when Melissa said she had VIP passes us all. Oh, also, Green, Hatsum is also looking as if she's literally about to explode with anticipation, so you should probably take care of that. She explains as she points to the vibrating May pestering Melissa with a million questions she didn't ask David. Right, I'm on it. Izuku replies as he attends to May, leaving the two alone. Thank you, Kyoka dear. Momo states as she kisses Jiro on the cheek, causing her to blush furiously. Not in public, Momo. She whines as she checks to make sure no one saw. But you're so cute when you blush. Momo replied with a stuck smile as she left to join the group. What have I gotten myself into? Jiro asks herself as she calms down to rejoin the others. Third-person POV. The group all then departed to go and explore the island together. All except All Might and David, who had a prior engagement. They witnessed what the world's best, brightest, and most brilliant had to offer. They saw a venue taking about the potential applications of fungus in space exploration and radiation cleanup. They moseyed on through a tunnel venue on new aquatic life dredged up by aquatic heroes. Fish that looked so alien they deserved movie franchises, and life so silly-looking airy had a good giggle at them. They strolled through a venue on advanced weaponry, such new technologies in laser casters and plasma cannons. They even had a demonstration to show effectiveness using test dumb kaboom, former test dummies. They witnessed a venue on advanced drone technology that could be controlled through VR controls and a gyroscopic body contraption. They saw a venue on new ways create graphene, a highly durable substance comprised of carbon atoms in a honeycomb nanostructure, using a cyclotron. They saw a venue on jetpacks using a new microbiofuel. The group all continued to walk through the endless venues of cool scientific experiments and research. The entire process took over 3 hours, and they hadn't even seen half of it. Eventually, however, after May burnt through half a dozen notebooks, Melissa suggested they take a leisurely break at a game venue called Villain Attack. How could they say no? Villain Attack game. When the group arrived, they saw the game. It was a pit with artificial rocky terrain with what looked like pointer robots from the next race exam acting as the villains. There was a timer on the side watched by an umpire who calls out the times of each contestant. However, as they admired the game, it was suddenly crash, buried under a small glacier of ice. The group looked down to see none other than Todoroki, his ever-neutral face intently focused on the task at hand. For 0.1 seconds, a new records, the umpire announced. Holy cow, who is that guy? Melissa asked. Our classmate. A familiar voice stated, drawing the group's attention. They then saw Kirishima and Toki smiling at them. Toki, Kirishima, how are you here? Momo asked curiously. Tadubro down there invited us to come along with us, too, and I'm quoting him as best I can, so I can upset my dirtbag of a father. Censored for Aerobro's innocent ears. Kirishima explained with quotation gestures around certain words. Yeah, not sure what's going on in his life, but the Ice Prince just suddenly called us out of the big blue and asked us if we wanted to come to Island with him. Couldn't pass up a trip like this. Toki stated awkwardly. Well, it's certainly not unpleasant to see you guys. Oh, introductions are in order. This is my mom Inko, you already know Eri, and this is Melissa Shield. Izuku replied, intruding his mother and new friend. Hey there, broettes. Kirishima replied in his usual manner. It's nice to meet you. Toki replied more normally. From there the group was soon joined by Todoroki, who was also introduced to Inko and Melissa. His general response to Melissa was normal, but when it came to Inko it was like he couldn't even look her in eye, which was strange since he told Izuku he visited his mother in the hospital during the internships. Maybe he was just shy? Moving on, the group were encouraging by Kirishima to take a turn in attack game with his usual enthusiasm. Most of the group agreed, but Melissa stayed quiet and May just wasn't paying attention. Jiro went first and used her sound infusion on the robots as fast as possible, but ended with a time of 17.56 seconds. Momo did much better by comparison, getting 6.07 seconds when she created a freaking Gatling gun and unleashed hell with an unending tidal wave of bullets which, despite being complete overkill, was very effective. Next up was Izuku, and the group could not wait to see what he did. You all seem very excited about Midoriya. Is his quirk really interesting? Melissa asked curiously. Nope, 'cause you see Midoribro is quirkless. Kirishima replied, stunning Melissa. Wait, really? She asked trepidatiously. Yeah, green is stupid strong too. Jiro explained with a smile. Melissa then looked to Izuku's mother and sister to confirm this, and Big Brother is the strongest there is. Eri exclaimed with utmost confidence. He sure is, sweetie, and I couldn't be any prouder actually. Maybe a little more. Inko reciprocated to her new daughter. Melissa, now completely baffled, observed Izuku with intensity to try and confirm or deny this claim that he was quirkless. And what she saw shattered any semblance of doubt. Izuku moved faster than a speeding bullet and struck with more power than a locomotive. Each robot was torn asunder and reduced to scrap metal faster than the eye could see. Then, as soon as it began, it was over. 0.89 seconds. A new devastating record, the umpire announced. When he returned to the group, Melissa was lost for words. This was, by all scientific measure, impossible. How could someone without a quirk be that powerful? After he was congratulated by his friends and family, Izuku suggested they go to a cafe for lunch as it was already 1400 hours, and they all agreed. Cafe. Melissa took them to a small yet highly regarded cafe on the island. But after making their orders, something, or someone should I say, appeared. Wait, Midoriya, Jiro, Momo? What are you guys doing here? A familiar voice asked. As the group turned, they saw Kaminari in a waiter's uniform holding their drinks. We should be asking you that question, charged old. Jiro replied using her affectionate nickname for the electrokinetic. Well, you see, me and the other guys wanted to make some money for the shopping trip later this week. So when we saw advertisements for Island, we couldn't paw it up. He explained, both answering questions as well as creating more. Guys, are there more of you here? Momo asked. Yeah, Yururika and Mineta are here too. Ida too, but I think that's unrelated. He explained as he pointed to the others. Oh hey guys, it's great to see you here. Yururika states happily. Yururika, Kaminari, you shouldn't be socializing whilst on the job, even if it is with our dear friends. Ida interjects. Dude, you don't even work here. You're on the island because your brother sent you. So why are you so uppity? Kaminari asks, causing Ida to stiffen. The two then began arguing as Mineta ran around trying to pick up the slack. Meanwhile, Melissa got Yururika's attention. Hi. I'm Melissa. Do you know Midoriya? She asked awkwardly. Oh hello, I'm Yururika. To answer your question, yeah I know Izuku, he's my friend. She replied kindly. Okay, is it true that he's well quirkless? Melissa asked tentatively. Yup. Eureka replied immediately with no hesitation. Melissa then asked the rest of the newcomers the same question, and they all reaffirmed the fact that Izuku was quirkless. Even Inko confirmed it and proudly declared that he'd never deny it. This whole revelation was destroying Melissa's view of reality, so she decided to do something about it later. Third-person POV. After the cafe visit, the group continued exploring the island. However, Melissa appeared to be highly distracted by something. She tried to play it off as exhaustion, but Izuku wasn't convinced. Eventually, however, the day came to an end, and the group began to disperse to get to their hotel rooms. However, Melissa quickly grabbed Momo and Izuku before then asking them to join her for something private. The two of them accept. Melissa's lab. Melissa took the duo to her own personal lab within the island's personal academy, which was a mess, but looked more advanced than any of the UA labs. This place is amazing, Melissa. Izuku states as he admires the room. Indeed, I'm sure Hatsum would be happy to see all of this. Momo compounded. Thank you. It's a result of years of work. Melissa replied as she rifled through a few things before grabbing something. My uncle might told me a few days ago that your quirk evolved Yamamo, and that it gave you incredible strength which you can't control effectively. So I made this. I hope you like it. Melissa explains as she hands Momo a wristband. What is it? She asked as Izuku curiously watched. Watch this. Melissa stated as she beamed with joy before then pressing an invisible button causing the band to glow and then begin morphing. The device gave off a brilliant, bright blue glow and began to shapeshift, growing and morphing around Momo's forearm, covering it in its entirety, save for the tips of her fingers. Once the glow subsided, it was revealed to have turned into what appeared to be boxing tape of a reddish color with a dark blue material around the knuckles. Both Izuku and Momo were amazed at what Y had just witnessed. I devised this little beauty from watching my Uncle Mite's videos, showcasing his incredible strength. It's fully capable of withstanding his full power 3 times in a row. Melissa explained to the utter shock of the duo. How can something so small be so powerful, and how did it shapeshift like that? Momo asked, bewildered by the technology. Nanomachines, right? Izuku asked, much to Melissa's surprise. Technology on this level wasn't much of a surprise to the part of Izuku that remembered Garou's life. His old world had technology centuries ahead of this world, and he'd even fought cyborgs such as the S-Class hero Demon Cyborg, whose firepower put people like Bakugo and Endeavor to shame, and that wasn't even considering the other S-Classers like Drive Knight, Metal Knight, and Child Emperor. As Izuku reminisced about his old world, told Melissa was explaining how she had acquired the bots and how despite their incredible utility they had their limits, explaining that her pogo stick was nanotech but required maintenance every few months. But then, Melissa's expression grew dark as she looked at Izuku and asked him something. Midoriya, can I ask you a question? She asked tentatively as she squirmed fearfully. Sure, he replied kindly. Well, you see, your friend, Kirishima, told me you were quirkless, and this was affirmed to me by your classmates. She states, getting the duo's attention. Yeah, I'm quirkless and proud of it. What's the problem? He replied. Well, you see, I'm also quirkless. She revealed shyly, much to Izuku and Momo's surprise. You see, when I was younger, I dreamed of being hero like my Uncle Mite, to help people with great strength, but after the diagnosis, I gave up. She explained as her voice hitched with emotion. In order to cope with it, I turned to the sciences to help people like my father does, through an indirect means, a hero for heroes. I believed that I was happy and content, but, she continued as tears began to roll down her cheeks. When I saw you destroy those villain robots, my heart sank. I looked you up on the internet and saw videos of you during the sports festival, and that video of you fighting with Maruko, and I felt ashamed of myself. She admitted as the food gates opened. Midoriya, despite being quirkless, you're so strong. You were handed a disadvantage and reforged it in favor of your dreams, whilst I just gave up. I never even once tried to use my technology to be a real hero, just a supporter. She cried as she wiped her teary eyes. Do you think that, despite my failures, that I can still be a hero? She asked, so full of hope. A sharp hand struck Izuku in his heart as he heard Melissa's tale. He remembered back to the day he remembered his old life as Garou, and that had he not been the reincarnation of a person who never took SHD from anyone and never gave up, then he'd probably have ended up a victim of Bakugo's relentless aggression. But now, with the aid of his old life and memories, he can be a real hero, not just a broken child sitting around saying he'd be one with no real plan. Of course you can be a hero, Melissa, Izuku stated firmly. All you need is to try, to never give up, and to embrace what makes you stronger. He states charismatically as Melissa begins to weep again, only this time the tears were joyful. Izuku's right. Momo interjects enthusiastically. When your heart deeply longs for something, all you need is the stubbornness and the willpower to never give up until you achieve your goal. Whether you're quirked or quirkless, rich or poor, so long as you have heart, and you can be a hero. Momo explained warmly as she hugged Melissa, and the blonde reciprocated. Thank you, Sniff, thank you both. Your words mean the world to me. Melissa replied as she regained her bearings. And who's to say you can't still use this technology to be the hero you want to be? Momo continues as she comforts Melissa. You're right. A hero isn't their quirk or their costume. They're their heart and willpower. Thank you both. I really needed to hear that. Especially from you, Midoriya. To hear those words come from a fellow quirkless warms my heart. Melissa states happily. No problem, Melissa. And you can call me Izuku if you want. He replied kindly. Okay. Oh, you guys should probably get going. Your friends are probably winding. What's taking you guys so long? Melissa replies as the duo hurry out her lab. Melissa made sure not to take back the nanotech band. It was a gift after all. However, as soon as the others left, she threw herself at a sheet of blueprint paper and began furiously drawing schematics as both Izuku and Momo's words rang in her head. I may not have a quirk or crazy martial arts skills, but I do have my mind, my heart, and my will to do right. Melissa thought to herself as her vision became clearer and clearer upon the paper. I'll be a hero, just one who fights in a more unorthodox fashion. She thinks TI herself as her future took shape. The shape of a humanoid machine, wielding nanotechnology and a sword. She ended the brainstorming session by naming her creation Metal Knight, no Platinum Paladin. Outside the tower, after another day of exploring the island, the group all found themselves invited to a black tie gala at the main tower. They agreed to meet up outside the tower itself before all entering as a group. However, Inko and Eri went in themselves along with All Might. As everyone gathered, they all admired one another's outfits. Since the gala was a surprise to some of them, Momo was kind enough to make outfits for Kaminari, Mineta, Uraraka, and Ida, whilst everyone else had their own. Izuku was wearing a standard rented tuxedo which was dark green instead of black with a lime undershirt and yellow tie. Todoroki's fully paid for tuxedo was white with a Parma violet undershirt and red tie. Ida was wearing a pair for in full blue tuxedo with a white undershirt and orange tie. Kirishima was wearing a rented gunmetal gray tuxedo with a black undershirt and red tie. Mineta was wearing a made by Momo dark purple tuxedo with a white undershirt and matching purple tie. Kaminari was also wearing a made by Momo tuxedo that was yellow with a black undershirt and a yellow tie. Whilst the guys all basked in their fancy suits, the girls arrived and silenced them all. Jiro was wearing dark purple thigh-length dress with pinkish gray leggings, red gloves, and leather jacket, all topped off with a flower in her hair. Uraraka was wearing a made by Momo pink open-shoulder thigh-length dress with a frilly skirt and black leggings, along with a flower in her hair as well. Mei was wearing a made by Momo consisting of an overalls dress colored bubblegum pink with a white blouse. It was also evident that the girls had forcibly washed her. She was also still wearing her steampunk goggles on her head, but faded scratch marks on the girls showed those weren't coming off anytime soon. Toki was wearing personally owned dark navy blue tibia-length dress that had shoulder straps and a V-neck, all topped with her usual ponytail and a blue flower. Melissa was wearing a dark purplish blue and light purple dress that went to her knees, with a white flower on the belt. She replaced her glasses with contacts, and her hair donned a red headband. And lastly, Momo, she looked stunning. She was wearing a crimson red ankle-length dress with a belt sash of the same color, a V-neck, a leg cut, along with a flower brooch on her left wrist of red flowers, and her usual ponytail. Man, we all look amazing. Aoyamabro is going to be so jealous he missed out on this. Kirishima states enthusiastically. The group all had to agree, They looked awesome. But they hadn't the time to stand around and admire one another. They had a party to attend. Unfortunately, they were suddenly interrupted. As soon as they entered the halls of the tower, an alarm suddenly began blaring about a bomb threat. The tower locked down with blast doors and shutters. "What's going on?" Jiro asked as they all covered their ears. "The intercom's not working," Uraraka stated. "Phone service is dead." Jiro compounded. "Elevators too," Mineta exclaimed. "I don't know what's going on, guys." The high alert mode wouldn't be triggered by just a simple bomb threat, and besides the building was checked literally the less than half an hour ago by security. It's standard procedure for big events like this. Melissa explained. "We should check the reception hall," Izuku suggested, and they agreed. However, as soon as they arrived at the hall, they found a solid metal door covering the entrance. "Jiro, you listen in, I'll take a look," Izuku states as Jiro composes, but the others all wondered how Izuku would look in. Shunk, until he poked a hole through the solid reinforced steel door with his finger to make a peephole. Let's see what we're dealing with," Izuku states as he and Jiro do some reconnaissance. What they found out stunned them. A group of armed mercenaries had attacked the gala, tied up the heroes with energy ropes, and gassed them. The civilians were all being held hostage with guns pointed at them. The leader, Wolfram as he was referred to as, grabbed David and his assistant Sam before leaving to a place called the Vault. When the group heard this, they were shocked. How could mercenaries not only sneak into one of the most secure places on Earth, but also take out all the heroes, including All Might, so quickly? "Guys, we have to do something," Kirishima quietly exclaimed as to not alert the mercenaries. "Inconceivable, Kirishima. We are students, not true heroes." Ida counters. "But, Ida, the people. How can we even call ourselves hero students if we don't do something?" Uraraka interjects. "She's right, dude. We can't do nothing." Kaminari adds. "Then what do you suggest we do then?" Ida asks. "We could override the security system." Melissa adds, joining in. "Okay, how do we do that?" Mineta asked. "The main security office is on the 195th floor, just below the vault itself. If we can take it back, then we could disable the security and call for help." Melissa explains. "Great plan, Melissa. All right, you guys go ahead and do that. I'll be right behind you." Izuku states, confusing the group. "What are you going to do, Midoribro?" Kirishima asked. Izuku gestured for the redhead to look through the peephole before answering. "Eri is on the verge of tears in there, and I'd be a shitty older brother to help her. So before any of you argue, I'm going in there and none of you can stop me. So go on ahead now," Izuku ordered, and the class listened. "Good luck, Izuku," Melissa states along with the others. As they left, Izuku removed his tuxedo's coat and took a stance in front of the door. "Party venue. Are all the hero gassed and bound?" The head mercenary asks. "Yes, sir. All heroes are now unconscious, even All Might," a subordinate replies. "Perfect. Now with just the civvies to keep an eye on, things are going to go a hell of a lot smooth." The head mercenary began to stare before he was interrupted. Crash. The main door burst open in a cloud of debris, startling everyone in the room and immediately putting the mercenaries on their guard. "You guys are in a whole heap of trouble," a voice states from within the dust. Said dust then cleared, and in the center of the room stood Izuku with a very displeased look on his face. The mercenaries all immediately aimed their weapons at Izuku, whilst Eri looked happy to see her big bro. "Those doors are all 1.5 feet thick and made of reinforced steel. How the hell did this kid manage to break through?" One of the mercenaries asks nervously. "Doesn't matter. He won't move so long as the sheep are still in our crosshairs," the leader states as he points his pistol at a random civilian. "Actually, none of them are in any danger," Izuku confidently states with a smirk. "And why is that, brat?" the leader demands. "Because you're not going to shoot them. Oh no, you're going to shoot me, and only me," Izuku explains calmly with an air of malice. "Oh, is that right, brat? And why is it that we would shoot you and not these defenseless meat shields?" The leader replies callously as the civilians begin to squirm anxiously. "Because if even a single drop of their BLD is spilled, I swear here and now, not a single one of you will leave this island alive," Izuku explains, putting on his best manic Garou face as he looks the mercenary leader dead in the eyes and smiles maliciously. The leader shuddered in fear as a cold sweat began to seep down his spine, but he pushes through and aims his rifle at Izuku. "All right then, brat. If you want to be a martyr so badly, then die." The leader replies as he opened fire on Izuku. Rat-a-tat-a-tat-a-tat-a. However, within Izuku's perception, the bullets simply slowly crawled through the air as if the atmosphere was made of molasses, and in an instant caught the entire clip, before then dropping them all on the floor. What the hell happened? 1 minute the kid's moments away from becoming Swiss cheese. The next, all the bullets are on the floor. A mercenary states fearfully, "It's a bit cliché, but I caught them all." Izuku explains as all the mercenaries being to silently panic. The leader was now drenched in cold sweat and freaking out. There were only a few no heroes capable of dodging bullets at that range, let alone catching them. But this kid caught not just one bullet, but an entire clip. "All of you, open fire." The leader mercenary shouted as he reloaded, and the entire force opened fire. Hundreds of bullets were fired in Izuku's direction, yet using water stream rock-smashing fist, he managed to catch and/or deflect every single one of them with ease. After about 3 minutes of continuous gunfire, the weapons finally silenced as to let the dust cloud dissipate. "Ha! Take that, you stupid brat!" The leader exclaimed, confident in him and his men's victory. Unfortunately for him, however. How unfortunate! Izuku stare as the dust settles, and the mercenaries all freak out, and the civilians all stare in amazement. Then, suddenly, the mercenaries' leader grabbed a civilian and held a knife to her throat. "All right, brat, you've proven you're faster than a speeding bullet. But are you fast enough to stop me from slitting this beach's throat?" The leader exclaims as his brow perfuse sweat. "No need. You guys gave me the perfect means to incapacitate you all," Izuku states, before raising his hands and showing he had 24 bullets betwixt his fingers. Before any of the mercenaries could react, Izuku threw the bullets with pinpoint accuracy, and every round struck a mercenary in both a knee and a both shoulders, incapacitating them all. Even the leader, who still had a civilian as a shield, was hit with impossible precision. In mere moments, the entire squad was disabled, and the civilians were left stunned at his actions. Izuku was immediately surrounded by the thankful civilians who were quickly moved aside as he went to check on his family. "Mom, Eri, are you all right?" he asked as his mother and sister hugged him. "Oh, Izuku, sweetie, it was so scary. I'm so proud to brave son like you," Inko stated as she crushed him in a hug. "You were so cool, big brother," Eri states as she'd hugged him. "Thanks, you too, but now I need to run. My friends are ahead of me," he states as he escapes their embrace. "Ahead of you? What's going on, Izuku?" Inko asked. "We're on our way to the 190th floor to reset the security system and call for help," Izuku explained as Faye began to leave, only to have Inko grab him. "Izuku, sweetie, just be safe, all right? I know you're strong, but that doesn't mean I don't worry," she states as Izuku embraces her again and gives both her and Eri a kiss on the forehead. "Don't worry, Mom, I'll be safe," Izuku replied as he fades off to aid his friends. Third-person POV. Eventually, Izuku caught up to his friends, who had rose through over 40 floors at this point, and he explained what happened. The group really weren't all that surprised at this point by Izuku's impossible abilities, but as shown by her disbelieving face, Melissa certainly was. As they ascended the tower, they ran into small bands of gunmen, which were all quickly dispatched by teamwork and a good old pounding. However, as nice they hit floor 120, most were exhausted and felt weak. It wasn't helped the impedance of a massive, magnetically sealed and alarm-rigged door. Kirishima and Izuku tried using motivational words to raise their spirits, but morale was waning. Melissa and May used their technical know-how to try hacking the door to open it without tripping the alarms. Unfortunately, however, Mineta made the mistake of trying to open the door by pushing a big red button, which then set off the alarms. Before the group could scold him, however, they were met with mercenaries, who, whilst quickly defeated, called for backup and warned the rest of their crew about the group in the tower. Izuku then switched from stealth to force and her torn the magnetically sealed door of its hinges with a punch, and they all continued. They soon found themselves in an experimental greenhouse Melissa explained was used to test chlorokinetic quirks. Unfortunately, however, they were met by two tougher mercenary goons, a stout man who transformed into a massive purple gorilla of a man, and a lanky fellow with large webbed hands. The gorilla man was super strong and durable, whilst the lanky man could spatially displace matter in perfect spheres just by touching it. Both quirks were dangerous in their own right, but these two also display teamwork and strategic thinking. Todoroki used his fires and ice in tandem for area denial to the villains, whilst Kirishima and Izuku attacked the gorilla man, and the others used ranged attacks to bombard the lanky man. But the mercenaries were persistent and skilled. Eventually time began to drag on, and Melissa insisted they must move forward, and Izuku agreed. Kirishima, Toki, and Todoroki would remain behind to deal with the deadly duo of maniacal mercenaries, whilst the others went on ahead. After escaping the greenhouse, the rest of group all made their way up through more floors and more bands of gunmen, until they finally reached the 195th floor, which was a massive central tower, led to my 3 gangways, covered in security robots, who all immediately attacked. The group took cover as the robots fired taser cables and expanding cement foam to incapacitate them. Momo quickly created a 40mm grenade launcher to thin the herd, but even after a dozen blasts the robots kept coming. Melissa explained that there were hidden transport tubes replenishing the robots' numbers. This army of mechanized menaces were a simple distraction, and the group knew it, so they had to conceive of a new plan. Momo created a Gatling gun for herself, amplifiers for Jiro, a large hammer for Yurika, a copy of Kaminari's amp, and a bat for Mineta, whilst Ida just used his legs. They all them torn into the horde of machines, giving Izuku, Mei, and Melissa an opening to get to the security center. The trio then approached the main security room. However, as the door opened, Izuku pulled them back as a blade tried to cut them down. Izuku swiftly grabbed the blade, pulled it, and its wielder from the shadows, snapped the blade like a twig, and beat the guy unconscious. They then entered the security room. However, Melissa then realized something. Security room. Where's my dad? She asked fearfully. That Wolfram guy talked about a vault. I assume you know something about that? Izuku replied as Melissa and Mei hacked the system. The vault is where we keep our secret or banned projects. It's a wealth of weapons and equipment that could start wars. She replied as she realized why the mercenaries need her father. They plan to rob the vault and sell whatever they can grab. It'll be anarchy. She exclaims. Then you need to stop them. Mei interjects. But I need to be here to help you crack the system, Hatsum. Melissa states. Call me Mei, and as for the system, it'll be easy peasy. Mei replied confidently. But it's military-grade code. Melissa argues, causing Mei to laugh. Ha ha ha, military grade just means cheapest thing they could buy for a decent level of protection. Trust me, I've got this. Now go save your dad. Mei replies as she dons her goggles and cracks her knuckles. Thank you, Mei. You're a real hero. Melissa states as she and Izuku race to the vault as they hear Mei cackling like crazy. Vault room. As they access the vault's main entrance, they overheard something. David was talking about something, a device that the Council of Island took from him. He lamented the work he'd done to create it. Sam then pulled a metal briefcase from one of the thousands of lockboxes and spoke about the villains doing their job right. What was going on? Daddy, what's going on? Melissa yelled as she barged into the room with Izuku at her back. Melissa? What you? Why are here? David asked as Sam began to sweat. We came here to stop the villains from stealing from the vault, but now you and Sam are talking as if you planned this. What's going on? She demanded as tears began to form. We built a Q80, a quirk amplification device. It took years of research and testing to complete it, but when we had finished it, the council took it away, saying it was too dangerous to release to the public. But I never planned to make it public. David explained as his words stunned Melissa and Izuku. A quirk amplification device was a piece of theoretical technology which could amplify the user's quirk 100-fold without side effects. But now David was saying he'd built one. Why? Why would you make something so dangerous? Melissa asked angrily. Because All Might is slowing down. David replied downtrodden. What? But Uncle Might is unstoppable. Melissa replied in disbelief. I know you think that, pumpkin, but he's still human. So I made the device to amplify his power, so he could continue to be the light in the darkness, to continue to be the symbol of peace. David explained fanatically. But why did you hire mercenaries? She demanded. Mercenaries? No, I hired actors to pretend to villainous mercenaries. David replied confused. Then why were they all armed with real guns then? Why did they gas the heroes after tying them up? Why did they sick the security robots on us? Izuku demanded as David went pale. But Sam explained. David cried out, sensing his assistant explain what was happening. You betrayed me, Davy. After all that work, all that effort, and you just let them have it. Sam replied as he looked at David with disdain. Sam, what's going on? David asked. Allow me to explain that, Davy. A new voice interrupts. As the entire room began to warp, a massive wave of metal then suddenly slammed into Izuku, burying him in metal and binding him with high tensile cables. Wolfram, what are you doing? Davies cried out. Boss man told me to be careful of that one. Wolfram replied as he revealed himself. With Izuku now bound and buried under several tons of twisting metal, Wolfram refocused his attention onto Melissa. Sorry, sweetheart, but I can't exactly let you live. See, you could probably blab about this little device your daddy cooked up, so unfortunately for you, I gotta kill you. Wolfram explained as he pointed his gun at Melissa with a cruel smile, much to David's shock. Wolfram, what the hell are you doing? I hired you and your company to stage this robbery, so why are threatening to kill my daughter? David demanded angrily, believing the men he hired to be actors. Click. Unfortunately for you, boss, I altered the plan. Sam states as he pulls a gun and aims it at David. Sam, what are you doing? This wasn't what we had planned. David exclaimed, completely clueless to what was going on. Well, you see, Davy, as I said, we sunk a hell of a lot of time and effort into this Q80 project of yours, and yet we didn't make a single cent or get 1 ounce of recognition for our achievement. You betrayed me. So, as you were sulking, I concocting this little act. I preemptively contacted Wolfram and informed him of my plan. I then referred you to him, and he played along as I requested. You see, Davy, this fine man isn't the leader of group of professional actors, but is in fact an actual mercenary hired to steal the Q80 by you. Sam explained to David's utter horror. He thought he'd just hired professional actors, not actual mercenaries. But why, Sam? David asked wobbly. It's as I told you, Davy. After all the effort we put into the project, we got nothing in return. So I figured that this was the most efficient way of getting something out of that whole ordeal. And all it's going to cost me is you, a hero student, and unfortunately your daughter. A fair price for the recognition and accolades I deserve. Sam explains bluntly in a monotone voice. Sorry, sunshine. I take no pleasure in your death. Sam tells Melissa as she stands there shaking in fear. Egghead here offered to make more of these here Q80s for us to sell on the black market if we cut him in on it. As a self-respecting mercenary, how could I say no? Wolfram explained as he leveled his gun with Melissa's head, who at this point was on the verge of tears after hearing Sam's explanation. I won't let you do that, you bestiardi. David cried out with angry tears in his eyes. And how do you plan to stop us, Davy? Wolfram asked condescendingly. Like this. David replied before suddenly swiveling on his heel and decking Sam in the face and grabbing his gun and pointing it at Wolfram. Oh, look at Mr. Big Shot here threatening me with a gun. What are you going to do now, Davy? Wave that thing in my face while spouting a bunch of cookie-cutter hero nonsense? Wolfram asked, arrogantly assured the feeble scientist wouldn't have the guts to actually shoot him. The mercenary then proceeded to PP his gun and aim right between Melissa's eyes. I'll do it, Wolfram. I swear to God, if you don't drop that gun, I'll drop you. David cried out as his hands shook in fear whilst pointing the firearm at the villain. Sure you will. Tell you what, I'll give you till the count of 5 to kill me. When the time's up, I shoot your little girl. Try to stop me, Davy. Wolfram stated in a mocking tone, a voice with a cruel smile plastered in his face before refocusing on Melissa. 1, 2, 3 FO. Was as fair as the mercenary got before. Bang, 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 bang. Thud. Wolfram's body dropped to the floor with a thud, his body oozing BLD from 4 new holes. Meanwhile, David looked on in horror at his actions, before then looking at his weapon and throwing it aside and falling to his knees in shock as Melissa ran to hug him. I was so scared, Daddy. She cried with tears steaming down her face. I know, sweetie, I know, and I'm so sorry for being such a fool. David replied as the two hugged one another with a love only a parent and child could bask in. It was at this point that Izuku finally managed to disentangle and escape from his prison of metal and wires and assess the situation. He saw the shields hugging each other and crying, the bleeding corpse of Wolfram, a still smoking gun, and the unconscious body of Sam. He quickly deduced what had happened and elected to let the shields have their moment alone as he secured the Q80 and Sam. Mindscape. Wolfram was just about to kill Shield's annoying little daughter before he suddenly felt 4 shocks of pain rip through his body and a chill encompass every drop of BLD in his body. He then found himself in a meadow of flowers completely naked. Where the hell am I? He asked himself as he looks around. You are in my realm. A commanding voice boomed which reverberated through the meadow. Wolfram immediately felt small and humbled as he turned and looked to where the voice originated from. What he saw broke him. A humanoid entity over a mile tall, comprised of what looked to be nothing more than bone and sinew, with a head made of brain tissue. Wolfram wanted to speak. He wanted to ask this entity questions. He wanted to know what was going on, but this creature's mere presence was so incomprehensible he couldn't even imagine how he would get it to respond. Fortunately for him, I have a proposition for you, Mr. Wolfram. The entity stated as it looked not at him, but at his very soul. Vault room. As Izuku secured the Q80 and tied up Sam, Melissa and David were quiet. They both knew their relationship would never be the same after tonight, after what David had done. Just then, however, a noise was heard. Grunt. Izuku immediately turned to the noise's origin and was shocked. Wolfram was moving, but it wasn't through a will to live. No, it was through inhuman intervention. Immediately, a frightening, familiar feeling enveloped Izuku's mind and soul, as Wolfram then looked up and spoke. Your old MSTR sends his regards, Hero Hunter. Wolfram announced as his clothes exploded off his body and he began to transfigure into a new form. Izuku, what's happening? Melissa cried out as she and her father bore witness to Wolfram's violent transformation. Izuku, for his part, was dumbfounded and left completely speechless. How? How did he know that epithet? Wait, he said my old MSTR. He can't mean bang. He couldn't know. No, not him. That's impossible. How could he be here? Izuku's mind raced 1,000,000 miles a second as he pieced together what was happening. Monsterization. Run. Izuku yelled to Melissa and David, who grabbed Sam and did what they were told. Izuku was left to watch as Wolfram's body violently mutated and evolved and became a monster. Ha ha ha, I can feel my new power. Not only have my quirks, muscle augmentation, and metal manipulation become indescribably stronger, but my body has become invincible. The new Wolfram announced with a new booming voice. As with a flex of his muscles, he stood proudly vaunting his new form. Wait, you named 2 quirks. Then that means that you are here on AFO's orders. Izuku accused the mercenary. Got it in one grunt, kid. Old No-Face contracted me to Grunt to grab the device to further his plans. But now, Grunt, I've got a new purpose, a divine purpose. The mercenary explained as his body violently convulsed. The once human mercenary was now completely replaced with a new monstrous visage. He now stood 40 feet tall. His head was replaced with a skull bearing 2 massive curved horns. His skin was now comprised of dark red and gray, dense muscle, except his forearms and cruce, which were now covered in blackened molten metal gauntlets and greaves. His hands and feet had become triple digitate and now sported 3-inch-long metal claws. His face was gone, replaced with a skull-like visage with glowing molten yellow eyes. From his neck down to his pelvis was a large indent filled with molten metal. He wore a large golden metal belt which flowed into red, a liquid metal tacet. In the center of his belly was a solid metal sphere free of any blemishes that radiated power. You idiot. You took his hand, didn't you? Izuku demanded as he took a combat stance. That's right, I did. Wolfram replied, before then suddenly moving at inhuman speeds and getting right in Izuku's face. And I can't wait to use this power to kill you and everyone else on this miserable planet. He shouted before pulling back a fist to strike Izuku. OSHD were Izuku's only thoughts before the attack landed. Izuku POV. Izuku was thrown a solid 20 feet by the attack, and it hurt a lot. SHD. His fists feel like solid reinforced cast titanium. It's like getting hit with a condensed rocket-propelled wrecking ball that's also on fire. Izuku assessed as he recovered from the punch. Such power, I can't wait to find out what else I can do. Wolfram states as metal sheets began to be ripped from the walls and float around him. Non-tactile metal manipulation? F yeah. The ultimate drawback of my quirk was my need to touch metal, but now I can just use my mind. Wolfram exclaimed joyously. Then suddenly the metal began to melt in midair. And I can control its temperature? This just keeps getting better and better, he states before blasting Izuku with a stream of molten metal. Izuku deflected the streak of liquid metal with his martial arts, but it still burnt like hell. That looked like it hurt Hero. Ready to roll over and die? Wolfram asked condescendingly. Not on your life. Izuku replied defiantly. Perhaps not on my life. How about yours? The villain replied before assaulting Izuku with a hailstorm of steel and molten iron. Izuku swiftly deflects the attacks before charging the villain and using whirlwind iron cutting fist to slice at him. The attacks took off the villain's arms along with a sizable chunk of his torso. UBSDRD. That hurt. Wolfram cried out as his body regenerated. Not. He cockily added. Wolfram then raised his hands and began to manipulate the entire vault. Every molecule of metal was under his control, and he brought the house down on Izuku's head, inadvertently killing his men on the helipad. Izuku did his part, dodged as best he could, but the attacks were coming from every direct, and even his speed and reflexes couldn't defend every angle simultaneously. However, as Izuku was defending himself from the onslaught of attacks, he lost track of Wolfram, only for the villain's killing intent to spike as he appears from within a block of metal. Peekaboo, I kill you. The villain taunted as he comboed Izuku with a barrage of punches, launching him into a metal cage. I'm going to feed you molten iron until your innards are a soup of metal and gore. Wolfram threatens. And after that, I'm going to kill everyone on this island, and no one can stop. Wolfram monologued, only to suddenly be interrupted. Detroit smash. By a punch to the face that sent him flying. No one threatens my student and gets away with it, villain. All Might declared as he aided Izuku's escape by pulverizing the cage. Thanks, All Might. He almost had me. Izuku admitted. This monster was by far the strongest opponent he'd faced. Next, All Might himself, maybe a bit stronger, but in any case it was clear Wolfram had evolved into a high threat level demon. So what's this punk story? All Might asked. His name's Wolfram. He was hired by your friend to step a device to stop your decrease in power, but was also hired by AFO to streak it for him. He has two quirks, metal manipulation and muscle augmentation. But that's not the worst of it. He transformed into the molten monster you see before you. Izuku quickly explained as Wolfram emerged from the rubble he was buried under. What? David would never do such a thing. But the other two statements you made worry me, young Midoriya. All Might replied as he prepares to face the villain. We'll deal with the details later, All Might. Right now we need to end this guy. Izuku states grimly. Young Midoriya. Heroes do not kill unless absolutely necessary. All Might scolded, but was ignored. All Might, that thing is not longer human. He's a monster, a literal monster. Izuku explained as the villain finally recovered and set his sights on the both of them. What are you talking about, young Midoriya? Monsters, it could just be latent mutant factors. All Might rationalized. I'll explain it all later, All Might. But right now he needs to be dealt with. Izuku snapped back as the villain charged them. I'll hold you to that, young Midoriya. Now then, together? The hero replied as he asked to join with Izuku. Together. Izuku replied as the two of them pulled back their fists. I'll flay you both and barbecue your flesh. Wolfram cried out. Smash slash smash. The two heroes cried out simultaneously. The combined attack slammed into the villain's jaw, breaking it into splitters and launching the villain clear of the tower. Unfortunately, he used his ferrokinesis to pull the metal of tower towards himself and create a platform. Oh, you oak my jaw. Wolfram complained as his jaw reformed. And there's more where that came from. All Might bellowed as he and Izuku jumped at the monster. The three of them were now locked in a devastating 2-versus-1 battle for the fate of the island. The two heroes threw their full might at the villain and using every technique in their arsenals to defeat the beam-muscled metal monster. But every time they injured him, Wolfram just regenerated over and over again. The villain himself countered their attacks with massive metal cubes used as meteors, cannons that spewed streams of molten metal, and punches that sent shockwaves through the air. The two heroes found themselves overwhelmed by the monster's sheer force and power, the tower acting as a limitless supply of ammunition for the villain, until they were both caught off guard and thrown back down upon the tower. This isn't working. He's just going to keep healing, and wearing us down, All Might. Izuku lamented as he dodged a molten cannon. I fear you may be right, young Midoriya. I just hope we can win before that happens. All Might replied as he mentally checked how long he had left until deflation whilst avoiding metal spears. You two pests are certainly persistent, but my MSR demands you both die, so I'll end this right now. Wolfram chanted as the tower began to rumble and bend. This isn't good. Izuku states as he and All Might dodged rising metal pillars as they all encompass Wolfram. The metal then began to shift and warp until a massive upper half of humanoid stood before them. It was well over 20 feet tall and completely reinforced. In each hand lay a blade edged with steaming hot metal. Upon its shoulders a head with eyes that glowed. Behold my Titan soldier of divine metal. Now die. The massive machine yelled as his vomited molten metal at the heroes below and swung its enormous superheated blades. They both dodged the lethal stream as it melted the area, and the blades as they cleaved through the tower like butter. They then counterattacked. All Might, if we want to tear this thing down, then we need to work together. Izuku stated as the duo assaulted the metal monstrosity. Isn't that what we've been doing, young Midoriya? The hero asked as he smashed more metal only for it to regenerate. No, I mean really work together. We need to combine our power on a spiritual level. We need to combine our fighting spirits. We need resonance and amplification. Izuku explained much to All Might's confusion. Just do what I do to the best of your ability and put your back and heart into every attack you throw. It'll work. Trust me. Izuku continued as All Might nodded in acceptance of the plan. The two then attacked different locations on the giant metal monster, and with each simultaneous hit their power grew. All Might felt his old strength returning to him as the embers of OFA glowed brighter than they had in years, whilst Izuku felt his own power grow exponentially and being cracking the wall that was his limit. The two heroes moved faster and faster, began to hit harder and harder, until the massive bolted behemoth was more dented than a generational car. But it wasn't enough. The machine just reformed and prepared to attack again. But Izuku wasn't done. As Villain forced the metal to reform, Izuku jumped at its chest where he could sense Wolfram's presence. He then kicked it with all his might and speared the metal mecha with his body, tearing through it like a bullet and gouging out the villain's regeneration core. Gah! Give that back, you brat! The villain bellowed as the machine menace dropped a sword and tried to grab Izuku. You want it back? Then go get it. Izuku replies as he threw the massive core into the sky. No. Wolfram cried out as he used a metal hand to grab the core. But it was too late. Izuku ran up the monster's back, jumped at the core, used it as a platform and bounded off it right towards the monster. I'll smash you, flat brat. Wolfram shouted as he tried to crush Izuku between the mech's giant hands, but it was for naught. Already died once, wasn't a fan of it. Izuku replies as he prepares his final attack. You'll never kill me. I have been blessed by God to end this world. And it's clear you've reached your limit. Wolfram yelled as he prepared to envelop Izuku with molten metal. That's where you're wrong, Wolfram, because you know what? Right here, right now, I'm going to surpass my limits. Izuku cried out. Take this. Monster Calamity Godslayer Fist. Mountain-splitting monster cutter. Izuku cried out as he used the same move he used to split that monstrous centipede from his old world. A devastating karate chop with his full strength behind it. The attack cleaved right through not only Wolfram's giant mecha, but clean through the villain himself and a good chunk of the tower. New impossible. I was given a divine purpose by God. How could Yuhawawa? Wolfram screamed as his body split in half. Hand Izuku kept cutting. Bottom of the tower. Outside the base of the main tower, the civilians were recovering and the heroes were busy dealing with the remaining mercenaries. David had confessed his crimes, and he and Sam were both arrested. But then, everyone, look, something's happening to the tower. A hero cried out, catching everyone's attention. Everyone immediately looked up as the tower's top was torn apart by a massive metal monstrosity. As the monstrous machine rampaged, many saw two individuals running across its body attacking it. Eventually, one of the individuals punched a hole through the machine before throwing something into the sky the monster wanted. Then the same individual ran up the machine's back, leaped at the thing he threw, and used it as a jumping point, before bisecting the machine menace cleanly in half. As the spectators watched, they soon saw the two heroes descend from the tower. Everyone look, it's All Might. The symbol of peace has saved us. A random hero cried out. Not just All Might. Look, Midori is up there too. Momo pointed out as she gazed through binoculars. When the two heroes of Our reached the bottom of the tower, they were immediately swarmed by the crowd. All Might, can you tell us what happened? A news journalist asked. What can you tell us about that giant metal monster? Another asked. Were you the one to cleave it in half? Yet another asked. Who's the green-haired boy with you? Is he a psychic? And yet another asked. Meanwhile, Izuku had his own problems. Oh, sweetie, I was so worried about you. Inko wept as she hugged her son. It's okay, Mom. I'm fine. He replied as he vainly tried to escape her grasp. You were so cool, big brother. Eri stated as Momo has given her a small pair of binoculars to watch after confirming Izuku was fighting. Thanks, Eri. It's always nice to hear your voice. Izuku replied as he escaped his mother's grasp and hugged his sister. Dude, Midori bro, what happened up there? Kirishima asked as he and the rest of the group crowded him. He had some explaining to do. I just hope they can forgive me for what I did. Izuku thought to himself as he looked at the hand that killed Wolfram. The moon. Meanwhile, as the heroes celebrated their victory, in the murky void of space upon Earth's lone satellite, a metamorphosis was occurring. The light side of the moon collapsed. A series of incredible earthquakes created a concentric set of circular craters, until the moon's surface looked just like an eye. And upon that eye stood an entity of malice and evil, of chaos and destruction, of manipulation and deceit. God, a minor setback. You have regained much of your strength, Garou the hero hunter. But for now I'll withhold and observe. Now then, who shall become my next apostle? God spoke as they looked down upon the planet they planned to eradicate. So, this was the end of part 6 of this series. Stay tuned for next part of this series, and if you like this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Until next time.